Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you all are having a wonderful day and are following all the necessary COVID safety precautions. I, Architect Mansi Ghavri, take immense pleasure in welcoming you all to this third and last session of the Tri-Webinar series dedicated to the process of Chandigarh, carrying forward the legacy of Le Corbusier and Pierre Jeanneret, which is being organized on the very special occasion of Earth Day, which marks the birth anniversary of modern environmental movement. ACT Chandigarh and Sakar Foundation Chandigarh came up with the idea to organize these webinars series with an intention to start an open discussion and share knowledge vital to understanding the city of Chandigarh on one platform. Also, at a time when most activities are restricted during this pandemic, we finally have the time to listen, to understand, and to think of our city. It was decided to bring viewpoints of all the actors and the stakeholders in form of short and to-the-point talks in simple language for an easy understanding of any regular citizen or a student. The organizers have been able to include noted planners, politicians, bureaucrats, residential welfare associations, and Government of India Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, as also many local architects, advocates, activists, researchers, and other concerned citizens in this conversation. The enthusiasm of all the speakers as well as participants has been overwhelming so far. I would like to share that all the videos from the webinars, along with a few more important viewpoints, have been made available on our social media page, Process of Chandigarh, on Facebook. The support from organizations like Government of India, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, Official Swiss Diplomatic Representation in India, Le Corbusier Foundation Paris, IIA Chandigarh and Punjab chapters, FSAI and GEM Chandigarh chapters, Jaguar & Co. Private Limited and Ultratech Cements, and also the participation of about a dozen architectural schools, universities, and research organizations have helped in making this series successful. The series on Process of Chandigarh was designed as a set of 3 webinars to discuss the past, present, and future of our city beautiful. In the first session, various experts dwelled on the legacy of master architects, outlined the original vision for Chandigarh along with its changed regional dynamics, the period of ad hocism that followed, and also the highlights of Chandigarh Master Plan 2031 that was created and notified as a result of a long-drawn struggle involving interventions by the Punjab and Haryana High Court. In the second session, we learned about the various aspects of functioning of the city as we see around us today. After an impassioned appeal by renowned architect Shivdutt Sharma to save the character and beauty of the special city, Shri Jagdish Sagar, IAS, former advisor to UT administrator, spoke to us about the challenges of administering Chandigarh within its given mandate. Shri R. Srinivas from Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs apprised all on the status of regional coordination issues that the city of Chandigarh is facing with the neighboring townships and the states. Advocate Ajay Jagga talked about the importance of safeguarding the heritage of Chandigarh. And engineer Vinod Vashish talked about the need for a more strengthened democratic framework for its governance. Involvement of residents in the decision making about the city's growth not only helps the city prosper, but also makes residents liable to think about the city. One such example is Indore city, which was recently declared the cleanest city of India. The single most important reason for Indore bagging this title is the combined efforts of the city's people, its public representatives, and government officials. Indore's journey is inspiring, and the steps it took are now being followed by many cities in India and across the globe. Today's webinar focuses on the need of public participation to ensure a sustainable growth of this Chandigarh city. To start with the session, I would first like to invite Architect Ramneet Ghadial to give the welcome address. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everybody. So ACT Chandigarh and Sakar Foundation have jointly organized this third and last part of this tri-webinar series titled Process of Chandigarh, Carrying Forward the Legacy of Le Corbusier and Pierre Jeanneret. So these events aim to bring forth information pertaining to major issues faced by the city of Chandigarh and adjoining areas, along with opinions of all stakeholders for an open discussion. We welcome our Swiss speakers, Dr. Tom Evermaid, Professor, Swiss Federal Institute of Technology, Zurich, Switzerland, Dr. Lorenz Stettler, Professor, Swiss Federal Institute of Technology, Zurich, Switzerland. Warm welcome to today's Indian speakers, Dr. Manoj Kumar Theotia, Assistant Professor, HUDCO Chair Coordinator, CRRID Chandigarh, Shri Pawan Kumar Bansal, former Union Minister MP Chandigarh, Shri Satyapal Jain, Senior BJP Leader and former MP Chandigarh, and Dr. Sangeeta Bagga, Principal CCA Chandigarh. We really appreciate efforts by architect Mansi Ghavri for preparing this online event, and it is our great pleasure to share that almost 12 design schools and professional associations are taking interest in these webinar series, and we welcome administrator staff and their understudies too. It's one of a sort occasion. Moreover, we invite our supporting associations, Government of India, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, MOHUA, Embassy of Switzerland to India and Bhutan, Consulate General of Switzerland in Mumbai and Swissnex, India, Consulate General of Switzerland in Bangalore, Le Corbusier Foundation, Paris, Ultratech Cement, Indian Institute of Architects, Chandigarh and Punjab chapters, FSAI, GEM, Chandigarh chapters, ASHRAE and Jaguar. We really appreciate your presence here with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Now, I would like to invite Mr. Manoj Theotia, Assistant Professor, HUDCO Chair Coordinator at Center for Research in Rural and Industrial Development, to introduce today's theme and the speakers for the session. He is an author and has been handling various research and training activities on issues related to urban studies for past 2 decades. Over to you, sir.
Welcome to the third event in the tri-webinar series organized by ACT Chandigarh and Sakar Foundation. Today's webinar is on public participation. If the planning and governance is through participatory process, probably the level of trust is also high. Then whether the governance is a kind of shared governance or it is just one-sided systems of delivery of services and management of systems. Whether the system has inbuilt mechanism of engaging people, whether various types of committees in which people are integral part have been constituted to manage various affairs, whether the government is responsive. So responsiveness of the government is again very important. The presence of the government is very important, and then trust building and dialogue between the people and various components of the government at local level. I think these are some of the important aspects. If you want to improve public services, if you want to have increased accountability in the systems, better transparency in the system, whether the local governments do social auditing, all these things, help in participatory governance arrangements. The participatory governance arrangements are possible through ward committees, through self-help groups, through advisory councils, through various procedures like social auditing, etc., as adopted in many other states. So these are some of the important theoretical dimensions which I was wanting to share before I talk about the India's experience and experience of some of the states, and also about the Chandigarh. Some studies indicate that implementing participatory governance in developing countries has been a very challenging task. It has not been very easy to implement participatory governance process in many countries. India's response to participatory governance has been mixed kind of response. Some states have done good, but majority of states lack participatory governance. Chandigarh, which relies on Punjab Municipal Corporation Act, because the same act has been extended to Chandigarh, Punjab Municipal Corporation Act 1976, after 74th Amendment it was extended to Chandigarh. Whether these acts and many other legal, institutional and administrative arrangements have been inherited or from other states, or they have been evolved in the city through participatory mechanisms. These are very important dimensions if we talk about participatory governance. It was only after the enactment of 74th Constitutional Amendment Act that Chandigarh came up for the first time with the elected governance in 1996. And in the elected governance, it was thought that since it has elected representatives, it has people's representatives, it has provision of ward committees and district planning committees. So it was thought that the process of planning and governance will change drastically. But somehow things have been very slow and not up to the mark, like in many other states where the participatory planning and governance mechanisms are very, very strong. If I highlight another issue which is related to the advisory council, that is another important aspects in the context of participatory governance. It could play a very important role if it has different subcommittees to work on various important issues and subjects in the city, to plan, to manage the things, help in oversee the things by conducting regular meetings, discussing various dimensions, prioritizing various requirements, the needs. But there has been a lot of ad hocism in conducting the meetings, in selecting the people, I think the entire process of people becoming part of these committees and councils should change. So the entire process of planning, which is still not bottom up, but top down, needs to be changed. Here I also want to give an example of housing. Chandigarh, in terms of construction of housing, has done pretty well. The number of houses constructed by Chandigarh administration is good, but again, the people's participation has been very poor. From the initial stages, while conceiving the projects for housing for the urban poor. My PhD thesis was on this, which I completed in 2018. And I found that despite the good efforts, despite achieving good number of housing units for the poor, the issues of segregation, issues of marginalization of the poor are there. And the marginalization is not only spatial in the sense of spatial marginality, spatial segregation, but it is also in the form of social and economic marginalization. You can see that poor people, slum dwellers, they have put together in several localities, whether it is Dhanas, Sector 38 West, or Sector 56, or in Ramdarbar, or many other localities. I think it's a big flaw in the system of planning. We also did not consider the requirement, the priorities of the poor people while planning that one-room dwelling. So many of the urban poor, after they were allotted the units, they had to change the internal structures. If people's participation was there in the initial stage, while making the initial layout plan of the unit, maybe we could have avoided that modifications, which resulted not only in the wastage of money of the urban poor, but also degraded the quality of the buildings. So that is another example. And of course, while shifting the people from colony number 4 or 5 to Dhanas or elsewhere, their workplaces where they used to work, they have gone far away. The ladies who were working nearby their slum areas are not able to find the jobs. Many people had to change their occupations. Many people have left the jobs because commuting every day to far-flung areas is another problem because of that. So I think these are some of the dimensions in local governance, in municipal corporation, in advisory council, in preparing various projects where people participation can play very important role in governing the city, in managing the local affairs, in improving the service delivery, Chandigarh has slipped in Swachh Bharat ranking. In many more areas, despite one of the best cities, we are lagging behind. I think we need to look at all these dimensions. While I have various suggestions to improve the situation in the context of participatory planning and governance in Chandigarh, like improving the local planning and governance at the pattern of Kerala model, where the plans are made at neighborhood level and then they become the plan of the city, and then they have a district planning committee which integrates the plan of the city as well as the villages, and then it becomes the plan of the district, and then all the district plan become the part of the state plan. And this is how the planning process should start. Kerala had huge people's plan campaign. They engaged all the institutions, all the agencies in planning. And today, at very short notice, because they have a lot of trained people, at very short notice they can organize training programs for the elected representative and officials, because they have trained the people from various colleges, universities, research institutions, training institutions, ITIs and all. Panchayats, you'll find a lot of people from Panchayati Raj institutions and urban local bodies. They are the trainer. So when the new governments are elected, local governments are elected, suddenly you find a lot of people to help them as a trainer about the new systems, new mechanisms. So they engage children through child assemblies, Bal Sabha, they call it Bal Sabha. They engage them in the local planning process from the beginning. So Kerala's model is very efficient model, very good model. Their devolutions are very high, one of the highest in India. Devolution from state to the local bodies and panchayats. The resources of the panchayats. In panchayat, they have even biodiversity plans. I don't find it here even in the municipalities. They don't know even what is biodiversity. They have small plans for all major things, and that's why they're very efficient in planning. And these plans are prepared in consultation with the people. I think these are some of the things, if we adopt in Chandigarh. We learn from Kerala, we learn from Gujarat, we learn from Madhya Pradesh and many other states. They are doing much better in terms of participatory planning. Way back I wrote an article in Hindustan Times that Chandigarh can try mayor and council system, which is much better than present mayoral system. And the term is just 1 year. It is like ceremonial kind of system that you want to make everybody a mayor. Mayor is very responsible position. It takes a lot of time to learn how to do the things, and when you learn, there is another mayor for 1 year. So I think we need to reform many things so that system of planning, system of governance improves. We also need to reform advisory council. Different subjects, different process of selecting people, regular meetings, meetings with the officials, meeting with different stakeholders of the city. And it should be effective instrument of planning, governance, management of local affairs. It should not be ceremonial, just one meeting or two meetings in a year and it's over. No. It should be very regular. Lot of hard work should be done to make it an effective tool of planning and governance. So, I'm a researcher. I have a lot of things to talk, a lot of ideas, but I think time doesn't permit, and we have a very good panel of experts who will be talking about various dimensions of planning and governance in Chandigarh. They have been there in various capacities. We have Dr. Tom Evermade, Professor for the History and Theory of Urban Design, Swiss Federal Institute of Technology, Zurich, Switzerland, who will talk on learning from everyday Chandigarh, urban futures of the recent past. We have former members of Parliament from Chandigarh, Sri Pawan Kumar Bansalji and Sri Satyapal Jainji, who will share their insights on the city of Chandigarh, the existing practices of public participation, along with the ideas for a framework to safeguard its future. Then we have a talk on participatory governance models by Dr. Laurent Stadler, Chair for the Theory of Architecture, Swiss Federal Institute of Technology, Zurich, Switzerland. And then concluding remarks will be given by Dr. Sangeeta Bagga, who is renowned architect and principal, Chandigarh College of Architecture. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. I would request everyone who is having an issue while viewing the video or hearing the video, please rejoin the webinar. You'll be able to hear and view after that. Moving towards the next session of the day, I would like to invite Dr. Tom Evermate, Professor of History and Theory of Urban Design at Swiss Federal Institute of Technology, Zurich. His research focuses on the architecture of the city and changing roads, approaches and tools of architects and urban designers for a cross-cultural perspective. Today, he will be discussing about the prospects of indigenous modern urbanism in Chandigarh. Over to you, sir.
It is a pleasure to be here and to discuss with you the future of Chandigarh in this seminar of this afternoon. Before I start my actual talk, I think it is good to have a little disclaimer and to tell you that I'm speaking here as an historian. In the past years, I have, together with my colleague Maristella Casciato, undertaken research, amongst others, into the city of Chandigarh and its design principles. As you can see on the screen, this has resulted in a book, Casablanca Chandigarh, a report on modernization, and also in an exhibition, the exhibition How Architects, Experts, Politicians, International Agencies and Citizens Negotiate Modern Planning, Casablanca Chandigarh. This exhibition was shown at the Center of Canadian Architecture in Montreal, Canada. The canonical history of Chandigarh is quite well known. After independence in 1947, Nehru commissioned a new capital for the Punjab region. The first designers were Albert Meyer and Matthew Nowitzki. Later on, a team spearheaded by Le Corbusier would be in charge of the design of Chandigarh. Next to the Grand Swiss Master, there were other important actors that took care of the design of Chandigarh, such as Pierre Jeanneret, but also Maxwell Fry and Jane Drew. Next to these European designers, there was a large group of Indian architects that were responsible for the design of Chandigarh. It is the legacy of all of these actors that we are encountering today in the city. So, how to look upon the history of the city of Chandigarh in a different way? In my talk of today, I'm going to propose to you that Chandigarh can be looked upon as an indigenous modern urbanity. I will claim that this indigenous modern urbanity also holds the key for the future of Chandigarh. In the remaining of my lecture, I will talk about the different characteristics that compose this indigenous modern urbanity. A first characteristic that I want to raise is the issue of landscape. It is maybe not that well known that prior to starting their planning project, Le Corbusier and the team made a very detailed survey of the landscape on which Chandigarh was going to be erected. Through sketches and photographs, they made a detailed and precise survey of the landscape qualities of the territory on which Chandigarh was going to be erected. This connection to the landscape and to the ground would become a main characteristic of Chandigarh. While other modern cities in Europe and in the Americas were designed as completely disconnected from their landscape features, Chandigarh maintained an intense relation to the natural features of the ground. In the various models and drawings, we see how nature and the urban are in Chandigarh no opposites, but reciprocal elements. In this reciprocity between nature and city, a new urban landscape is created. This large attention for the landscape within the urban environment is one of the defining characteristics of the indigenous modern urbanity of Chandigarh. A second characteristic that I want to talk about is Chandigarh's relation to local patterns of life. While other modern cities were designed according to universal principles, in Chandigarh another approach seems to have been at stake. This becomes particularly clear when we look at the housing in Chandigarh. While the dwelling typologies look very modern, at closer scrutiny we see that there are particular aspects that relate to local dwelling patterns. In these houses by Maxwell Fry, for instance, there are large terraces which allow to sleep open to the sky during the hot months. In other instances, we see how building elements were especially designed to accommodate local patterns of gathering and working, as here in these entrance portals. Time and time again, this acculturation of local dwelling patterns to modern building typologies was a characteristic of Chandigarh's indigenous modern urbanity. A third aspect that I want to draw your attention to is Chandigarh's engagement with local ways of building and local materials. It is well known that for the construction of Chandigarh, a specific choice was made for locally produced brick that could easily be produced but also employed by regional craftsmen. This engagement with local construction techniques and local materials would not only become a defining element of the aesthetic of Chandigarh, but would also locate the production of the city clearly within the local economy. Thinking a modern city in relation to vernacular materials and construction techniques would become one of the characteristics of the indigenous modern urbanity of Chandigarh. Another feature that characterizes the indigenous modern urbanity of Chandigarh is its intense relation with climate. Numerous are the examples of building elements that create shadow, cross-ventilation and protection for the sun. All of these elements were needlessly incorporated in the modern urban design and architecture of the new city. Engaging with issues of climate and the environment would become in Chandigarh a full-fledged characteristic of an indigenous modern urbanity. Last but not least, the city of Chandigarh also exemplifies a particular approach of the temporalities and agencies of the city. Instead of looking up urban design as proposing a final blueprint for the modern city, the project for Chandigarh is an attempt to mediate between the different temporalities and the different agencies that are at work in the city. At several scale levels, the project for Chandigarh deals with the relation between the long-term and more short-term changes and transformations that are happening in the city. At the largest scale level, there seems to be a double grid at stake. The grid of the sectors seems to be complemented by a second, less visible grid of green spaces. The juxtaposition of these two grids creates cells that are half a sector wide and that define a frame within which the sector can urbanize. This idea to articulate a long-term frame in order to allow for more short-term transformations and adaptations is very particular for the urban design of Chandigarh. A main characteristic of the indigenous modern city seems to be its capacity to change and adapt over time within the confines that are set by the two grids. At the scale level of the buildings, the urban designers and architects of Chandigarh created the principle of aesthetic controls. Precisely designed and sturdy concrete frames in the facades of buildings that comply to a predefined urban rhythm. These building elements represented the long-term static principles of the built environment, while allowing more short-term transformations to take place. The aesthetic controls secure an urban rhythm, continuity and coherence in the city for the long term, while allowing for difference, hybridity and ambiguity for the short term. As many of you know, this unique system made it possible to cater for the various temporalities by which the urban environment is being transformed and adapted throughout time. However, the two systems that I explained to you, the system of the double grid and the system of the aesthetic controls, are not only about the various temporalities that we can recognize in the urban environment. They are also about the different agencies that produce the city. Most importantly, they are about the agency of the urban designers and architects in relation to that of the citizens. Indeed, the system of the double grids seems to negotiate between the long-term qualities of the street and the green strips that are defined by the urban designer and the ongoing urbanization which is defined by the citizens themselves. On the other hand, the frame of the aesthetic control is carefully composed by the architect in order to secure a long-term cohesion in the urban environment, while leaving the single citizen the opportunity to change, transform and adapt his dwelling. In other words, the artifactual definitions of the urban landscape and of the building in Chandigarh regulate the relation between the agencies of the designers and that of the citizens that both produce the city. The very formal and material reality of the double grid and the aesthetic controls installs a very particular relation between the collective interest, which is represented by urban designers and architects, and individual and private interests that is represented by the inhabitants. As a conclusion to my short talk of today, I would like to argue that the challenges that the architects and urban designers of Chandigarh were facing in the 1950s still resonate today when we want to think about the future of the city. This is the meaning of the title of my lecture, Chandigarh Learning from Chandigarh. Indeed, I believe that we cannot think about the future of Chandigarh today without taking into account the main characteristics of the indigenous modern urbanity that this city represents. Indeed, we need to ask ourselves today about what sort of relations the city maintains to the landscape, how it relates to the patterns of life, how it engages with the ways of building, how it deals with the big climate challenges that we are facing, and last but not least, how a new urban design engages with the temporalities and most importantly, with the agencies of citizens. These are the challenges that Chandigarh is facing, thinking about an indigenous modern urbanity for the 21st century. Chandigarh, learning from Chandigarh.
Thank you so much, sir. Chandigarh indeed is not just a site of large and iconic monuments, but is also a place of ordinary houses, shops, and public spaces in the sectors. Chandigarh for today has indeed a lot to learn from the Chandigarh of the past. Moving to the next session. For the next session, we have with us 4 times MP from Chandigarh, Shri Pawan Kumar Bansal ji. Shri Pawan Bansal requires no introduction to the residents of the city beautiful. Having led an active public life for almost 5 decades, and after having served the city as well as the country in multiple capacities, always sharp, witty, articulate and meticulous, Shri Pawan Bansal ji will be talking about his ideas of New Chandigarh. Over to you, sir.
Shri Surinder Baggaji and friends, I congratulate members of ACT Chandigarh and Sakar Foundation for organizing this 3-day webinar on process of Chandigarh in collaboration with the Embassy of Switzerland and Le Corbusier Foundation, and deem it my privilege to participate in it. Because of the current pandemic, we miss the benefit of a lively physical program where I personally would have had an opportunity to interact with experts in different fields. I also confess that I have not yet had the opportunity to view the proceedings of the earlier 2 sessions, but will do so soon to benefit from your deliberations. Speaking on today's sub-theme, public participation, I recall my being part of Chandigarh's public life in different forms and capacities since the last 45 years. Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru conceptualized the city as the new capital of Punjab after it lost Lahore to Pakistan in the subcontinent's partition. He articulated his vision of Chandigarh as a symbol of free, democratic, resurgent modern India. Its planning by the celebrated architect Le Corbusier lent it the iconic status of a planned, designed and built city as an example of modern utilitarian architecture. Political developments leading to reorganization of Punjab in 1966 threw the then incipient city in the throes of a political slugfest between the successor states of Punjab and Haryana, with no agreement being reached amongst them because of their intransigence. Chandigarh was declared initially as a union territory for 5 years. Years back, a status quoist pragmatism lent a de facto permanence to this status. This status now is practically irreversible. However, the city remains deprived of an empowered democratic setup, which is essential to truly realize Pandit Nehru's vision of the city. For the first 30 years as a union territory, Chandigarh only elected a member of Lok Sabha. The municipal corporation was established in 1994 And ever since its first elections 2 years later, it has only presented a modicum of local self-government with no real say in the affairs of the Union Territory. The Member of Parliament is essentially a legislator and enjoys no special constitutional authority regarding the affairs of the Union Territory. It is only informally that he or she may exert influence to get things done, particularly lobby with the Finance Minister and others to get much needed funds for the city. In essence, Chandigarh, like other Union Territories without legislature, is a bureaucratically run administrative setup. Though men of caliber, experience and attainment have run its affairs, yet civil servants cannot be a veritable substitute for democratically elected people's representatives with necessary powers of governance and decision making. They come for a fixed term of 3 years on what are considered to be the prize postings. Few of them would have an inclination to identify themselves with the yearnings and aspirations of the people and have a hands-on approach to the city's myriad problems. The Member of Parliament is only entitled to recommend public works worth rupees 5 crores per year, but the execution thereof is also tied in red tape, with the concerned officials apparently bogged down with various other responsibilities. This despite the fact that an area smaller than a district in a state has 14 IAS officers and 7 IPS officers, with full-fledged departments with absorbing more and more senior officers. Chandigarh could well be cited as an example of Parkinson's law at work. The elected municipal corporation will complete 25 years of its existence in December this year. But in the absence of transfer of vital functions to it, as stipulated by the Constitution, it has always remained handicapped, rather crippled in its working. The Constitution's 73rd and 74th Amendment Acts assured that necessary functions, functionaries and funds will be transferred to panchayats and municipalities to make them vibrant tools of democracy at the grassroots level. It hasn't happened so far. The administration continues to control many of the functions enumerated in the 11th and 12th schedules. There is no district planning committee in Chandigarh as mandated by Article 243 ZD. The 4th Delhi Finance Commission had recommended devolution of 30% of this UT's revenues to the Chandigarh Municipal Corporation. It has remained a mere recommendation, and the Municipal Corporation is only pressured to impose new taxes. A popular democratic edict says, no tax without election. Members of the Municipal Corporation are elected all right, but it being just a local body, an unelected Union Territory officer has the power to direct it to do his bidding. Resultantly, property tax has seen sharp increase. Water rates have been increased manifold, and on the top of it is a whopping 30% sanitation cess. Yet, there is no processing of solid waste, and the ever-rising dumping ground with its perennial stink has become a major health hazard for the people. Also, roads are in a state of utter disrepair, all because the UT does not have an empowered elected body for its governance. All the open spaces where garbage used to be dumped earlier were turned into beautiful sector parks only after the work was assigned to the municipal corporation. The Panchayati Raj system has completely been done away with. For 3 years, the villages of Chandigarh have no elected representative at any level. The result is writ large on the face of rural areas of Chandigarh. Every development activity just seems to be forsaken. There is in place an Administrators Advisory Council, a body nominated to advise the Governor of Punjab in his role as the administrator of the Union Territory on matters relating to the city. Apart from its meetings being few and far between, it has not served the purpose of being a truly people's representative institution. The meetings are more of a PR exercise by the administration to apprise the chosen few of its work and obtain a stamp of approval. It was not always so. Prior to the practice of appointing Governor of Punjab as the administrator of Union Territory that started in the early 80s, the administrator used to be a senior IAS officer from Delhi, and paradoxically, the then local advisory committee headed by him exercised greater supervision over the functioning of the administration. Every member could send in questions for the regular meetings, and the concerned departments were obliged to submit detailed replies thereto for the committee's scrutiny. At the meeting, any matter could be taken up for thorough discussion. No agenda was then prescribed by the administrator for an inane meeting. Back then, members of the advisory committee had a visible say in the governance of Chandigarh. Without being an elected body, it presented the picture of a truly participatory democracy. And then, now there is supposed to be the Home Minister's Advisory Committee for Chandigarh. I have not heard of its constitution or meetings in the recent past. Twice, the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Home Affairs, headed at one time or the other by late Shri Pranab Mukherjee, who then rose to become the President of India, late Shrimati Sushma Swaraj, and Shri M. Venkaiah Naidu, now Vice President of India, made significant recommendations related to the governance of Chandigarh Union Territory. Nothing happened. Even a directive to the advisor to administrator and other officers to hold a monthly meeting with the local member of parliament on development works of the city was given a quiet burial after the first meeting on the reservations expressed by the Honorable Governor cum Administrator about the directive's constitutional validity. This is the state of Union Territory Chandigarh. It is revenue surplus, yet it doesn't get adequate funds from the Consolidated Fund of India, to which go all its revenues. It has an MP, but he is just one of the 545, unless he can exert personal influence with the union ministers for a few more rupees for its development works. It has just a glorified elected body called the Municipal Corporation, but in the eyes of bureaucracy, it is only a local body. There may be other bodies like the Heritage Conservation Committee or the Committee on Landscaping, etc. But these are simply creatures of the administration, which itself is, strictly speaking, not answerable to the people. To put in place a responsible elected institution for governance of Chandigarh, a demand of a legislative assembly is occasionally raised in different quarters. Not undermining the spirit behind this demand, it is my considered opinion that a legislative assembly like that in Puducherry or the National Capital Territory of Delhi is not a viable proposition for Chandigarh. The next best alternative is a Metropolitan Council at the UT level, with the Chief Executive Councillor as the head and executive councillors vested with executive functions and powers of different departments. Only functions like law and order and others could remain with the administrator, who would continue to be the head of the administration like a governor or a lieutenant governor. Article 243S of the Constitution mandates the constitution of ward committees. It was not intended to be a sterile provision, and it has turned out to be in Chandigarh. Democracy is not just about holding elections every 5 years or so. It must establish systems of good governance through larger participation of people in day-to-day matters concerning the people. Ward committees and residential welfare associations are those public bodies which can beneficially contribute to the development of the city as a model of urban governance and play an important role in various other public centric activities, whether those be social or cultural. I would conclude by saying that a vibrant participatory democracy is one where views of civil society are respected and the government is guided by a democratic temper, is fired by a democratic temper. For a small union territory like Chandigarh, the administration will do well to hold open houses with an open mind, inviting the concerned stakeholders to give their opinion on vital issues concerning the people before it arrives at any decision. Chandigarh must allow an organic development of democratic institutions and practices from the grassroots level upwards, and not summarily imposed decisions from the top, howsoever well intentioned those be. Thank you.
I would request the organizers to kindly please start with the SP Jain sir's video.
Happy that the ACT Chandigarh and Sakar Foundation are organizing a seminar, not one-day seminar, not one-day discussion, but discussion about Chandigarh past, present and future in different sessions. Experts from different fields have been invited to give their views, and I am thankful to them for inviting me to this discussion, seminar, webinar, whatever you may call, on public participation in Chandigarh. See, the Chandigarh was carved out in 1966. I remember I belong to Kharad, about 22-23 villages from Kharad Tehsil were acquired, and ultimately the development of Chandigarh started. Over the years, it has come out to be a major town of not only the northern India but of the entire country. 66, when partition of Punjab took place, the then Shah Commission had recommended that Chandigarh, entire Kharad Tehsil consisting of Chandigarh, should be given to Haryana. But then, under the pressure from various leaders from Punjab and because of other many factors which I don't want to go at this moment, the then Government of India, then Prime Minister Mrs. Indira Gandhi, at the last moment, she decided to keep Chandigarh as a union territory. It was a decision which was taken just at the time of division of Punjab. So except that it was declared to be a union territory, its elected representatives, corporation, assembly, etc., all those issues were not gone into. As a result of which, from 66 right up to early 90s, it continued to be governed by the officers, by the administrators. Earlier it was the Chief Commissioner. After the extremism came in Punjab, then the Chief Commissioner's post was abolished. The Governor of Punjab was given the powers of the administrator unity also. The point which I want to make, the first point which I want to make is this, that for about 25, 28, 30 years, it was only and only the administrative setup consisting of officers from Punjab, Haryana, who used to manage the affairs of Chandigarh. And I remember, even in early 80s, a demand had started coming from the people that look here, the officers come from Punjab and Haryana, 3-year tenure, 2-year tenure, 4-year tenure, they come here, they go back. One officer has his own perception about Chandigarh, another officer may have his own different perception about Chandigarh. Unless there is a people's participation in the decision making, there will be no continuity. I remember in one of the meetings I was there, somebody put me a question. He says, why Chandigarh is being discriminated on that issue? If in Punjab, some decision has to be taken. It is the elected Chief Minister of Punjab, maybe Prakash Singh Badal, maybe Captain Amarinder Singh. If it is the case of Haryana, it is the elected Chief Minister, maybe Shri Manohar Lal ji, Om Prakash Chautala ji, Bhajan Lal ji, Huda ji. If it is a Himachal, then maybe Shanta Kumar ji, Veerbhadra Singh ji, or Prem Kumar Dhumal. They take a decision because they are the elected public representatives. Why not some set up in Chandigarh also, so that our plans, our futures, people can also participate in that. And I think it was after that then a demand started. In 1994, for the first time, the Parliament of India enacted and made the Punjab Municipal Corporation Act applicable to Chandigarh. That was 1994. In 1996, I was elected to Lok Sabha from Chandigarh. For 2 years, nobody bothered, the then government and the then MP, to hold election to the corporation, so that at least some participation of the people is there in the decision making. And I remember when I raised this issue, at that time, the then advisor, when I was insisting that now the corporation has come into existence, kindly hold the elections to the municipal corporation. And I am telling you the mind of the bureaucracy. The advisor told me, sitting alone with me, that Mr. Jain, now you are the MP here, you are the wholesale public representative. Why should you have 20 more councillors? Why should they be elected? And they will also try to share power with you. I told him, I said, look here, now I have 2 hands to work in Chandigarh. If the councillors are elected, 20 councillors, I will be having 42 hands with me for working for the welfare of the Chandigarh. Bureaucracy never wanted any public participation in the decision making of the Chandigarh. Now, corporation, 25 years have passed. We have the experience of the corporation. I don't want to comment on the working of the corporation as a way. Both the parties have been coming into power in the corporation different times, BJP also, Congress also. I think that the saturation point did not come. There is still scope for raising the level of discussion and the level of issues in the municipal corporation all the time without commenting on any political party. Secondly, I feel that unfortunately in the matter of public issues also, public participation also, political parties are not able to rise above the political concentration, and sometimes on different times they take a different stand also, like voting right to the nominated municipal councillors. If it suits them, they support this. If it doesn't suit them, they oppose it. But anyhow, that is not the point today. I am of the firm view that in the decision making of Chandigarh, people's participation is a must. Public voice must be heard, because it is the people of Chandigarh, residents of Chandigarh, who know what issues have to be taken, in what form they want the solutions. Now, I give an example. Now, this corona issue. For the last 1 year, we are having corona. All decisions about corona are being taken. I am not criticizing those decisions. Some of them have been very good also. Only by the bureaucrats. Why don't we involve the public representatives also? In a number of areas, I remember, cantonment zone like Bapu Dham, etc., Sector 30B, when it was continued for days together, months together, it was the people who objected to that. Had you heard their voice before that, I think some embarrassing situations could have been avoided. Now, the transport policy, education policy, excise and taxation policy, rehabilitation of colonies, the regularization of the need basis changes made by the people in Chandigarh, in the houses allotted by the Chandigarh Housing Board. These are the issues in which public participation, and if I may say, without public participation, you may not be able to reach a correct decision. Sitting in the offices, you take a decision, your house will consist like this, and all that. But on the ground level, when you go, people tell you, now my children have grown up. When I got the house, we were 2 people. Now my daughter, my son has grown up, he has been married, he has his own children also. But this voice may not reach the people who are taking decision unless there is a public participation. How can it be achieved? There are 2-3 ways. It's a union territory. In India, there are union territories which are having the legislative assembly also, like Pondicherry, like Delhi, like perhaps there is one more, Lakshadweep or some other state, UT, where there is a legislature. I feel that all the political parties should sit together and arrive at a consensus whether we should have legislative assembly for Chandigarh or not. Unfortunately, as I said earlier, the moment one raises this issue, it becomes a political issue. Not from political angle. Let us examine it from the point of view of the development of Chandigarh. If not the Vidhan Sabha, I feel there should be an interstate development council for Chandigarh, consisting of the representatives, elected representatives, public representatives. Necessarily may not be elected from Punjab, Haryana, Himachal, Chandigarh, who should think about the problems of the region. And because of public participation, many issues can be sorted out very easily. For example, housing. In Chandigarh, thousands of people come from Panchkula, Parvanu, Kalka, Ludhiana, Samrala daily to Chandigarh. They come in the morning, they go back in the evening. Now, if all the public representatives sit together, why can't we have, you may be working in UT Chandigarh, have the housing scheme in Mohali, in Morinda, in Kharag. People come from Parvanu. Why can't we think of having some power plant near Parvanu, Baddi and all that may ultimately meet the requirements of people of Chandigarh. Water, now we are getting the water from Kajoli. Though when the Chandigarh was carved out, they had thought of the Ghaggar Dam to be a source of water. But with the passage of time, now we are getting water from Kajoli. If there is an interstate development council for the development of Chandigarh, issues like metro, this can be very easily sorted out by the participation of the people. I have been told that there is already an interstate development council in existence, but unfortunately it should be allowed to work very well. Then there is a Home Minister's Advisory Committee, which consists of people from Jilla Parishad, Municipal Corporation and all other people. They should also be made effective. The Advisory Council was constituted about 25-30 years back for the administrator in Chandigarh. I am very happy that it is working comparatively much better than we had thought of it. Now the present governor, Mr. B.P. Singh Badnor, has further divided it into subcommittees and they are doing very good job. Very good job they are doing. But we should also think at this moment, rising above political consideration, should we have only municipal corporation or should we go for metropolitan council or mayor in council? Some higher step so that there can be more public participation. I am of the view that in a democracy, we ordinarily call it right from the 10th class, the student says, government of the people, by the people, for the people. But it should be by the people also. For the people, it can be even by others also. By the people means the public participation is a must, and I am very confident. I have been moving in Chandigarh. We have retired officers here, ex-servicemen, IAS, doctors from the military defense forces, which I have been calling that these are the FDs. Chandigarh is having the FDs of vast public experience. If you give a chance to those people in public decision making, I am very confident that ultimately Chandigarh will once again go higher, higher and still higher and be not only a very prominent and a most beautiful town of India, but we can be among the 4, 5, 10 beautiful towns of the whole world also. For that we have all to work together, ignoring political considerations, rising above your own personal political consideration and thinking in the best interest of the Chandigarh. I hope that sooner or later this issue will come and ultimately we will be able to involve public representative, both elected as well as non-elected also. There are many people who may not like to contest election. You can't expect retired military officers, retired IAS officers, doctors to contest election. So the participation by the residents of Chandigarh, elected, non-elected, professionals, non-professionals, should be ensured, which will go a long way in the overall development of the Chandigarh.
Thank you so much, sir, for shedding the light on the working of the city and highlighting the importance of residents' voice in decision making for the future of the city. Thank you for highlighting the need to empower the Interstate Development Council as there are 3 states that are involved in day-to-day working of Chandigarh. Moving on, I would like to invite Dr. Lawrence Stedler, Chair for the Theory of Architecture in Swiss Federal Institute of Technology, Zurich. Dr. Stedler is an architect, an author, and a distinguished academician with expertise in history and theory of architecture. Sir, we would request you to kindly share your perspective to understand the issues faced by people here today.
I would very much like to thank you for this kind invitation to speak to you today. I was, I guess, invited as a Swiss scholar to speak about the wonderful Champ des Gares, and this is also the position that I'm going to take today with all its shortcoming, for which I would like to excuse me. Two Swiss gaze have been thrown on Champ des Gares already in the 60s, the one who show perhaps two poles of the project. The one is, of course, that of Le Corbusier and Jeanneret. It's the perspective of the architect. It's the promotion throughout his writings, throughout his books, of an authoritative view, which on a project which somehow concludes lifelong patient search, as he would say himself. The second gaze, and it's perhaps also a second pole, is that of Alain Tanner, the filmmaker, who celebrates throughout his movie, which was shot in 1966, the endeavor of building a city. It's the celebration of a city in becoming, where earthwork, brickwork, and construction work is at the center of the movie. Rightly, the two views have to be criticized if we speak about public participation. In the case of the architecture, of course, because we know the authorship was much more complicated as that of a single person. As we know, the importance of previous architects, collaborators of Le Corbusier, architects who were building alongside Le Corbusier, but also, of course, the vision that Nehru had at that time. But also on the level of an urban scheme, because Champ des Gares is also the continuation of an international, or at least Western debate, which was widely discussed among architects, engineers, urban planners, hygienists, at least since the 19th century. So Champ des Gares is a frame for larger discussion, which deals with the question of what democratic institutions are, how they should be placed inside an urban scheme, how modern traffic and circulation has to be managed, what living and housing would mean in the 1960s. But also on the level of architecture, of course, Champ des Gares has the signature of its architects, but perhaps much more important is how much Champ des Gares changed this language because of the climate conditions, because of the building materials, because also of the existing craft. So it's necessary to change our gaze, or to move, and to say perhaps that Champ des Gares is not important, or not only important because of its architecture, but perhaps, or its architects rather, but because architects is the incorporation, expression of its time, like the antique Rome was that of its time, or the Aztec Mexico in the 14th century, or Shanghai in the 15th century. It's the expression of a global and public debate about what architecture is, should be, what a capital should be, how it can be built, how is it lived, and how it would be transformed. We have to change our gaze because, and there it's where Tanner comes in, because Champ des Gares is not only the vision of a few on the paper, but it's a common endeavor. It's not only about architects, engineers, but also very much about workers, a lot of women, animals, and so on. It's necessary to change the gaze on the city, not only to look at the heroic endeavor and construction of the city, but also to look at the traces, at the marks that have been left of the city, its streets, its buildings, its landscape. What I want to transmit in this short message is that we have to look at the city not only as an object, as a matter of concern, of public concern, not only as its architecture, its design, but also as a site of negotiations in the 60s, but up to today. And what makes the quality of any city, it's the density of the relations and the density of the negotiations of these relations. If I rely on the three topics or three problems that were transmitted to me, that of traffic, that of parking, that of slums, I think we can quite nicely or quite well frame what that is mean, because to understand a city through traffic, through parking, through slums is the expression of a city which follows particular interest, that of the individual car, in the case of traffic, that of free space, in the case of parkings, that of social segregations, in the case of slums. So to think the city as a place of public negotiations is somehow to think on how this public and particular interest could again become part of a larger, denser set of relation. And probably this has to be done on very different levels, as public participations will probably has to take place on different levels. Perhaps free spaces is a question of local engagement. Individual cars, that of public administration. Slums, for sure, that of political decisions. I really hope that internet will work and that I will be able to join you personally on the 26th. Thank you very much for your attention. I am very grateful to be part of this endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for taking out the time for us. That was a sensitive and beautiful speech. Going forward, a city must be viewed as a place for public negotiations. That is truly said. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Sangeeta Bagga, Principal of Chandigarh College of Architecture. She will be sharing with us the role of the institution in the process of Chandigarh. Over to you, ma'am.
Good afternoon, everyone. For today's seminar, I have been asked to conclude and to express my thoughts on the role of academia in the development of a public participatory tool in the government mechanism of any city to be administered. The role of academics in the deliberation of a city are paramount. There are several dimensions of engagement. The first is documenting the present to compare it to the future when the present becomes the past. Hence, mapping the city through immersive studios and workshops has been the intent and the role-making of the College of Architecture in the city public participatory process. The academia thus is a repository of the city space. Each successful mapping exercise builds on the learnings and buys on the outcomes of the previous ones. The second dimension of engagement is to furnish a platform of discourse, debate, and to brainstorm. Holding the Belgian mirror, examining the city with a lens, inside, outside, periodic conferences, panel discussions, and further deliberations can enable this. Thus, the academia is responsible to conclude on this task. In the third dimension, as a stakeholder in the participatory process, the academia proposes an engagement as a stakeholder to carry out surveys, short-term testing grounds for interventions, pilot studies. This helps us in two ways. We prepare our students through tool mapping exercises and enable a mapping of the city, which at other times may be extremely costly, time-consuming, and almost impossible. As an instrument of transmission of knowledge, the academia can disseminate to society at large the real purpose of the city, its values and principles through forums, research projects, public participation, exhibitions, movies, and preparation of graphic material. By including the architecture, town planning, and urbanism into its curriculum, academia can empower its products who become ambassadors who can educate the public at large. The role of CCA as a laboratory to furnish architects is as old as its creator, Le Corbusier. Established in 1961, there were three things that were part of the curriculum of the teaching learning at CCA. The first was a carpentry workshop, and the workshop discipline was a much awaited and much practiced and continues to be so as part of our curriculum. As a repository of this, handcrafted wooden wall models of the city were made, and workshop became an important part of the curriculum and continues so till today. The second was the establishment of an audiovisual laboratory and the development of architectural photography as a discipline. As a history recorder, the archival collections of photographs of CCA holdings are worthy of mention. The development of a research and documentation cell to develop the infomograph, to provide information on the city, and books on Chandigarh has also been active endeavor of the CCA. Notable among these are Documenting Chandigarh Volume 1, the complete works of Pierre Gendre, Maxwell Fry and Jane Drew, Trees of Chandigarh, a small booklet on the tapestries of the Capitol complex, an socio-economic atlas or an urban geographic atlas of the city. Needless to say, the theses that have been in the holdings of the CCA of its undergraduate works exceed 500 plus and are frequented by scholars not only from the national schools but also from the international arena. Therefore, I would like to conclude by saying that the academia is that armature of public participation and can contribute significantly to the governance of the city with little cost, great cost effectiveness, and ample time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for such a wonderful talk in highlighting the need for academia to get involved and act as a platform for public participation. Now, I would request all our panelists to kindly switch on their cameras so that we can continue with the question-answer round. Today in the panel, we have with us Architect Surinder Baga, Architect Aradhna Jindal, Architect Shilpa Das, Dr. Manoj Kumar Teotia, Mr. Jagdish Sagar, Dr. Harbeen Bhandari. Starting with Mr. Sagar, I would say. So what is the one thing which you regret that you could have done for Chandigarh which you could not? Jagdish sir, you are not audible to us.
There.
Sir, yeah.
I think you can hear me now, I hope so.
Yes, sir.
That's a surprise question, taking me completely by surprise, because when one was there, one always had a large number of things in mind, and I never left the job.
That comes to mind.
There were lots of things that needed to be done, which I wasn't able to do. So, and I think that's true with all my colleagues as well. So I I'm at a loss to answer that one, except perhaps that we had started that project that Dr. Sangeeta Bagga referred to about documenting Chandigarh, and the second volume of that, the first one was about Jean Rey and the English couple, Jane Drew and, sorry, the name escapes me. But the first volume was about their architecture, documenting it, and the next volume didn't get made. Perhaps that is a small regret. That was supposed to be the second half of that project. But that apart, I can make, since you've called me, just one comment on what is being discussed. It was a great pleasure to see and hear Mr. Bansal and Mr. Jain again. They were very much there in my time as well. But on what they said, I think it's fair to say that Chandigarh was constructed, designed, conceived, everything top down. And so its initial administrative setup was also top down and deriving from authority, even authoritarian. And that fitted very well enough with the original conception of Chandigarh, which was never going to stay. That beautiful little plan that Dr. Abrahamate showed us once again. Chandigarh was never going to be like that, and therefore the city is going to be something vastly different. It's going to have slums. It's going to have 3 or 4 times the population that it was meant to have, counting the extensions of Mohali and Panchkula, counting all that, and it's going to be much more than it was ever going to be, and that is what went wrong. The original conception for how to run the city can't work, and the elected people whom you have heard, or the political people whom you have heard, were very right on that point. Thank you, Ez.
I have a question for architect Shilpa Das. After listening to so many experts, politicians, bureaucrats, what are your plans to carry forward the ideas or the proposals of these webinar series? As Mr. Sagar already said, there are lots of things that need to be done. So what are your ideas?
Thank you. Actually, this was a very long time dream to have all these thoughts put together at one place at one time, because the conversation, I believe, has to come back to where we are going rather than where we were intending to go. And we need to see and understand the place where we are today. So what we do beyond this, Mansi, is, I will say this is the first step. And it is up to all of us who are invested in this idea to decide and figure out where we want to be. Having said that, personally, my understanding for the city started with what we understand and what we learn in college. But after this 99 conference, when Jagdish Sagar sir was there, I got a clue into the town planning and the future where the city should be going, and the best brains in the world brainstormed on this. Eventually, it was a discovery, and it was a sad, disappointing situation when we learned that because of this political stalemate, we are stuck in this logjam. And that's when we realized that unless the people of Chandigarh come together and insist on a framework which takes us to a better, brings us to a better place, things are not going to come together for Chandigarh. So I'm very, very optimistic that this conversation will go on and the efforts will succeed. Thank you.
I really hope that does happen, because it is one of a kind platform that we are getting to share and listen to everybody and share the knowledge. One question I have for Engineer Vashish sir. Has City Forum of Resident Welfare Organizations collaborated with other institutes or societies? And if so, we would love to know the experience, and if not so, will you be interested in collaborating with other institutions like IIA or FSAI if they take the step to bring in the public participation ahead?
Definitely yes. And if we go by the idea of the setting of Chandigarh, And I was just going through other day the quote from Corbusier that he has built the city. Now it is up to the residents to carry it forward. So definitely we have lot of resident welfare organization in Chandigarh associations. We have around 200 in number, and we have different groups and forms where all are interconnected, and we would think of something new also, so that we can carry forward the thoughts set up by ACT and Sakar Foundation. Definitely, yes.
Thank you so much, sir. To Harveen ma'am, recently we read that CEPT University conducted a study on Chandigarh's traffic system and proposed few solutions for the same. And as Sangeeta ma'am was saying, how academia plays such an important role, we want to know, like, why aren't our own institutions, which are either in the periphery or in the Chandigarh itself, not taking studies of the Chandigarh and proposing solutions for the same?
Thank you for the question. Very good afternoon to all the listeners and to the panelists. I would say rather it's not the case. It's not that the institutions are not taking up. In fact, we as a school, Chitkara School of Planning and Architecture, have done a few exercises in the city around. We did a documentation exercise in Sector 22, starting right from the Aroma, covering the entire V4 till the Light Point. We also did a similar exercise in Sector 15, including the Ready Market and the entire area behind, where we documented, we also took interviews, we also recorded the traffic pattern. Then another exercise was done on disaster management in the Bank Square of Sector 17, Chandigarh. But I would say there has been some gap. We've not brought it forward. We've not brought it in public domain. We haven't shared it with anybody. So this series of webinar has given us also that vision that we should bring it up. And there are many other exercises. In fact, I remember a very nicely done thesis by one of our students who had worked on the Capitol complex. So we would definitely make initiative and bring those studies in the public domain so that it can be discussed and taken up further. Thank you.
I would like to ask Mr. Baga, you have worked as nominated councillor and presently a member of advisory committee of Chandigarh to Union Ministry of Home Affairs as well. What according to you is lacking in Chandigarh?
Thank you, Mansi. Thank you. I worked in municipal corporation and I found that for a budget of say 800 crores, there is only one architect. And all the drawings are, not available, but work is being carried out in Chandigarh. Whereas I went to Vancouver for a population of 6 lakhs. They have 300 professionals working for the city. I think it's surprising for a population of 1 million, only 10 or 20 or 15 people are working, and in addition to that, they are not sufficiently empowered. They are totally controlled by a set of engineers or bureaucrats. That is very unfortunate part of the city.
Exactly. Now, as ACT Chandigarh and Sakar Foundation have taken the initiative to provide a platform where actually we were able to discuss all these things, I think a lot of people, be it academicians, be it the architects, planners, everybody would be they will be keen to think about it and move forward with the agenda that ACT Chandigarh and Sakar Foundation have started. That's all for the question answer round for now. Moving forward, I would like to invite Dr. Sangeeta Bagga for the concluding remarks.
Excuse me, Mansi. We also have Dr. Aradhana from MMU University.
I think so. She is not here right now. I can't see her on the screen.
Ma'am, are you here?
Yeah. Actually, I wanted to ask Aradhana ma'am if she has anything to add how academicians can actually play a vital role in helping public participate.
Academicians, they have a vital role, I think, because they can make their students first aware of that basically how they can really raise the issues right? And first the understanding the issues, then raising the issues. So public participation is very important. That, and second most thing is, as a researcher, they can really do research. All right, it's very important that research is important for understanding the issues and bringing it, in the foreground for the people to understand, and really that they can take it to the administration, right? Because taking the issues to the administration is very important. So academician role is to awaken the people through the students, right? Through the research.
Ma'am, what would you say about like collaborating with the government bodies, either municipalities of the respective cities the colleges are located? How can students actually work with them in collaboration and bring about a change in a city's future?
Basically, the thing is that, what happens that the municipal corporations, they have been working in isolation. They don't basically listen to the public. And since I am from Ambala, so I have been seeing a lot of changes taking place in my Ambala, but there is no public participation. They have not been even asking the architects what exactly is to be done. So that change is not organized, the change is not sustainable, and it is something like, they have been doing in disintegrated way. So like, people face a lot of issues due to the unorganized development of the city. Similarly, Chandigarh, because there is no public participation, so that is why the things are happening only at the administrative level. So what happens that it is the user who have to use the city. They have to face. For example, I say that the traffic issues, I say that the parking issues, they are very vital issues, and they have the direct impact on the citizens or the residents of the city. So similarly, I would say that if at all, as an academician, as a college, if at all, we meet the district administration and just make them aware of, how we really have to, we have the contribution. Because so many times even I have tried at my level to meet the local administration, but the thing is they never listen, hardly listen. So it is that the district administration also has to be proactive in understanding the views of the public. Because the public is at large is the most affected by any decision which the administration takes at their level. So similarly, for example, the Chandigarh, like Sangeeta Bagga is saying that we have to, as an institution, the students can really, suggest some studies, like we can carry out such studies, and those studies are to be taken to the administration, and the administration should again be proactive in understanding that what are the implications of like such studies and how they can be, applied at the city level. Because students, they are, I think, very active, and they have a lot of energy, and through their teachers they can really carry out a lot of studies.
I think so. People like organizations like ACT Chandigarh's Sakar Foundation, who are actually involved both in academia and this platform making thing, these people can actually help us bridge this gap that is between the public, the residers, and the government officials. So
yeah, this is a trio. Basically, this is a trio because all have to be proactive. It is not just, it's not one man's territory or one man's job.
It has to be an army of people who can actually do this. Moving on from our question answer round, I would like to invite Dr. Sangeeta Bagga to conclude the session for today.
Good afternoon, everyone. The Tri-Webinar series of the Process of Chandigarh, organized as a professional collaborative exercise supported by the official Swiss diplomat representations, Foundation Le Corbusier, the Chandigarh, Punjab and IIA chapters, and coordinated and handheld by ACT Chandigarh and the Sakar Foundation. The first webinar, that was titled Legacy and Vision, was presided over by His Excellency Ralph Heckner, Ambassador of Switzerland to India and Bhutan, and he was truly appreciative of the commendable efforts taken to engage the citizens from different walks of life to create awareness on the role of the history and vision of the city, about the creation of the modern city in post-independent India. Madam Sumit Kaur, former Chief Architect UT, expressed the urgent need to implement Master Plan 2031, both in letter and spirit, to conserve the legacy of Le Corbusier. Shilpa Das, founder of ACT Chandigarh, along with Surinder Baga, deliberated on the theme and stressed upon the need to have a more public participation oriented in the affairs of the city and its decision-making process. Senior advocate M.L. Serene, born and brought up in the city, advocated the need for a central controlling authority which would take care and nurture the city and its periphery, wherein the voice of technocrats be given greater weightage. Dr. Philip Upstrang, professor from the Swiss Institute, brought about our attention to the idea of the city as a historical enterprise and its cultural value, and raised the question of the city being alive and not a monument to be fossilized. Architect Surinder Baga stressed upon the need of the hour to the problems of the growing city, and Dr. Aradhna Jindal expressed hope that the webinar would generate awareness and serve as a catalyst for the historical preservation of its legacy. The second webinar was focused on how to take forward the legacy of the city, wherein Mr. S.D. Sharma, eminent architect, who was also responsible for realization a large part of the city, he reiterated the need for a robust framework so that Chandigarh's beauty and character could be preserved. Several experts presented their viewpoints. We had former advisor Sri Jagdish Sagarji. He recorded that administering Chandigarh was a far cry from what was envisioned, even when he was the advisor of the city. Planner R. Srinivas expressed and emphasized on regular and frequent regional coordination meetings so that the city can be managed at the regional level because of the interdependency between the city and its hinterland. Dr. Harveen Vandari, Deputy Director of Chitkara School of Planning and Architecture, expressed hope that such deliberations will make the city better in the future. Shri Ajay Jagga, noted advocate, emphasized the importance to safeguard immovable and movable artifacts of the city. Today is the concluding webinar on 22nd of April, for which we have all been listening to the deliberations. The theme was public participation, which was introduced by Shri Manoj Teotia, who has been working for several years with CRID, the Center for Rural Research and Industrial Development, and his work and contribution to the research on the city is undoubted. Shri Pavan Bansal, senior advocate, expressed his concerns and even wanted to participate physically, albeit the pandemic. He has expressed his concerns for the city, and he congratulates the organizers on the occasion, and he feels that a greater voice needs to be given for electing the people's voice, and the civil society must be respected and the government must be guided by the democratic temper. The Union Territory needs a small open house mechanism involving stakeholders right from decision making at the grassroots level. Shri S.P. Jain, former MP, was also a veteran to the city, recalls how the city was created from the villages of Tehsil Kharar, where he himself belongs, and the decision to keep it a UT in 1966 at the behest of Srimati Indira Gandhi. And he continues to say that for 30 years there was a government set up, and the need for public participation and the voice of the people only arose in 1994. But he still feels that the public voice requires to be heard at a much deeper level. There's a need of a transport policy, an infrastructure, housing policy. However, it is also important that these policies be shared with the public at large. Dr. Lawrence Stolder from the Swiss Federal Institute highlighted on two key stances that we need to take for the city. One on the project by Elsie and Pierre-Jean, which he claims that Chandigarh needs to be a wider debate on a global level. And the second, he recalls the movie by Alan Tanner in 1966, where he says that the densities of negotiations are extremely key and important in the making and the continuity of the city. For Tom Alvermaete, who is a historian and faculty at the Swiss Federal Institute, there are two historical thoughts that need to be considered. For Professor Alvermaete, the key is the indigenous modernity that is important for the city. It is characterized by the relationship that the city has with 5 elements. The first is the indigenous landscape. The second is the climate. The third is the local men and methods and materials which contribute to an east-west dialogue. And the construction of dwellings which may be modern in their temper but definitely indigenous in their temperament and the way of life. Last but not the least, he insists upon a negotiation that must be there with the temporal and the agencies that are responsible for building the city. These deliberations have continued in the last 2 hours and are going to stay with us for several moments and in time. And within the framework of public participation, the role and responsibility of academia has already been reiterated by me, so I would not delve much into it, except that to say that different palettes and layers of the city are there, and the academia can serve as a strong armature to the governance of the city in making the public voice heard and appreciated. Manoj Teotia, in his deliberations, has reiterated the idea of trust making, which is so important and significant in today's world. He says there are several good things that have been done in Chandigarh. However, we need to make planning inclusive. We need to talk about housing for the urban poor to make it inclusive. We need to talk about social and physical equity. We also need to talk about the issues of segregation and marginalization should be done away with, and that can only happen when right from the inception, from the grassroots level, we are able to engage in a public participatory building and design process. The Swachh Bharat has been a good thing for Chandigarh. Many new projects are also coming up. However, he has been citing time and again the case of Puducherry, the case of Madhya Pradesh, the case of various other states where participatory planning has actually engaged and brought about good results, right up to the Gram Panchayat level. And the bottom-up approach is what Manojji has been talking about. And in some ways, he has been reiterating that even having the child assembly is right at the grassroots level, from where if we start inculcating the values of public voice and participation in the youth, in the young ones, we will go a long way in creating an inclusive society which will have public participation, which will hold the government in hand and walk forward to make the city much more inclusive, a worthy place to live in, and an ideal city that Chandigarh was envisioned to be. Thank you very much for your time and your cooperation.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for concluding remarks. You beautifully summed up everything that we have been talking about in all the sessions. Thank you so much. Now I would like to invite Architect Ramneek Gariyal to present vote of thanks. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So good evening to all present here. It is my pleasure to propose a vote of thanks for the contribution of each and everyone for having made this last part of this series of webinars a memorable event. Also, we'd like to express deep gratitude to ACT Chandigarh and Sakar Foundation for giving us this opportunity to meet and exchange knowledge. Special thanks to our Swiss guest speakers, Dr. Tom Alvermaete, Professor, Swiss Federal Institute of Technology, Zurich, Switzerland, Dr. Lawrence Stedler, Professor, Swiss Federal Institute of Technology, Zurich, Switzerland. We are really indebted to today's Indian speakers, Dr. Manoj Kumar Tiotia, Assistant Professor, HUDCO Chair Coordinator, CRRID Chandigarh, Shri Pawan Kumar Bansal, former Union Minister and MP, Chandigarh, Shri Satyapal Jain, Senior BJP Leader and former MP Chandigarh, for sparing their valuable time to participate in this third and last part of the tri-webinar series titled Process of Chandigarh, Carrying Forward the Legacy of Le Corbusier and Pierre Jeanneret. Special thanks to Dr. Sangeeta Bakka, Principal CCA Chandigarh, for offering concluding remarks today. In addition to that, we are really grateful for the academic and research institutions, Chitkara University Punjab NHP, CCA Chandigarh, IPS Academy Indore, Lovely Professional University Jalandhar, RIMT University Mandi Govindkar, CT Group of Institutions Jalandhar, GNDEC Ludhiana, MM University Sadapur Ambala, IKG-PTU Mohali and CRRIT Chandigarh for their wholehearted participation. We are really grateful to our supporting organizations such as Embassy of Switzerland to India and Bhutan, Consulate General of Switzerland in Mumbai and Swissnex, India, and the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, Government of India, Consulate General of Switzerland in Bangalore, Le Corbusier Foundation, Paris, Ultratech Cement, Indian Institute of Architects, IIA, FSAI, and GEM, Chandigarh and Punjab chapters, ASHRAE, and last but not least, JACWA. So our special thanks are all due to all of you for being with us here in the tri-webinar series. These webinars have been a great success with all of your support. Thank you very much indeed, all of you. Our profound appreciation is for the multitude of media personalities for their wholehearted support for this program. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Once again, we apologize for all the technical difficulties that we faced in today's session, but we are grateful to our supporting organizations and all the audience. Thank you for making these series of webinars a success. We would like to share with our attendees that in collaboration with about a dozen architectural schools and university, various type of competitions were organized, which included sketching, poster making, photography, and many more on the eve of these webinars. We are planning to organize a special session in the coming days to share with you the inputs received. Till then, we request you to stay connected with us on our social media page or Facebook for our upcoming events. Thank you all. Hope you all have a remarkable day ahead. Thank you.